and welcome to this Spirit Gathering teleconference. Today is the 16th of January, 2018, and my name is Thomas Ayers. Our topic tonight is actually a question. How do we know the truth? Let's take a moment now to get settled, to center ourselves, to let go of the events of this day, and begin to enter the deeper sacred space within ourselves by means of 5 minutes of silent meditation. Meditation period will begin with a brief invocation which I will offer, and it will end when I ring the little bell. So please mute your phones now if you haven't already done so. From the heart of our divine union, the place where we know as home, we call forth divine love and divine light. Connecting now with the physical core of the earth, we open to divine love and divine light. Connecting now with the highest spirituality we know, we receive divine love and divine light. As your children and only as your children, we are divine love and divine light. welcome back. Since this is my Smarty Pants question, I guess I have the honor of starting. As I wrote in the invitation to the conference, to the gathering, on the Saturday, May 6, 2017, I had one of those dreams that I remembered upon waking up. An inquisitor who I can't quite identify in the dream asked me, "What do you fear the most?" And my response was, well, not knowing. And then there was this pause, and then this thing blurted out the truth. I've had several months to think about that, and I really don't know exactly what kind of answers I'm going to come up with in terms of this spirit gathering, but for the purposes of this gathering, I'd like to explore that question: how do we know the truth? And I can think of several dimensions: one physically, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, and there may be others which will emerge in the course of our conversation tonight. And I'd like to proceed in the spirit of non-judgmental exploration, not necessarily of empirical proof. So, speaking for me, and I don't really want to, shall we say, influence or prejudice or color the discussion and the conversations and the sharings which might come next, but it's sort of my turn, so I guess I ought to explain what it means to me so far about what is the truth for me. The truth for me is not the same as facts, either empirical facts or scientific facts. One can say that it's not snowing. In some sense, that is the truth, at least here for Larchmont, but in some sense it's what I would call a little t truth. And one could say with a fair degree of certainty, say that Einstein's formulation of E equals mc squared is in fact the truth, but again, for me, that's a little t truth. It may be reliable and useful in predictions and experiments and have empirical validity, but in some sense it's not the truth, the kinds that I'm thinking of, at least for the purposes of this gathering. The kind of truth that I'm thinking of for the purposes, our purposes this evening, is more like a principle or an essence or the spirit of truth or the soul of the matter, something like that, something that doesn't change over time and doesn't differ with whatever particular mood I'm in at the moment. So that said, it's, having thought about it for, like I say, several months now, it seems to me that there's kind of two ways that at least I can know the truth, or I've come to know the truth. And one of those ways is by what could be called revelation, and the other way is by kind of recollection. And I guess this is where I start kind of giving some details of what I'm talking about in terms of my own little exploration. My journey has been just actually captured in its essence by Lara's invitation, the card that she picked for the invitation. of the kind of the winter scene with the trees and the sun shining through. In the end, that's what it's kind of been like for me. We can see that there's that sun or the truth that's there, and there's lots of kind of trees and lots of kind of snow in the foreground. And my journey's sort of been very much kind of captured by that card, that invitation. The revelation part, or what it could also be known as a direct experience for me, came when I was on a healing table with my Barbara Brennan healer, Kathy DeAngelis, in the fall of 1974. I'm sorry, 94. And I had a direct experience of what Barbara Brennan calls the core star. And that's right in the midline of the body, halfway between the soul seat at the throat and the tantien and the pelvis. It's right where the diaphragm, the bottom of the diaphragm, where you choose to breathe or not. And ever since then, I've had this kind of direct knowing sense within that is the absolute truth or essence or principle or the home of my spirit. And then for the other way, the way of recollection, it's been rather much kind of checking out all the trees in the invitation. There was the tree of literature and the tree of philosophy and the tree of psychology and psychoanalysis, and also the energy healing tree. And it's in some sense been rather much the journey of what Plato would call the doctrine of recollection, kind of remembering a little here and remembering a little there and remembering a little here. And one of the key remembrances is, again, Kathy DeAngelis suggested I should read something called The Autobiography of a Yogi by Yogananda, which I did. And in there he makes various references to the Bhagavad Gita from the Hindu spiritual tradition, so I went and read his translation of that and various other translations, and within those translations they kept making references to the Upanishads, so then I started reading various translations of those, and there it was, in the Mandukya Upanishad, verse 2. All this is Brahman, one without a second. And in this kind of curious kind of way, that is the words that apply to my core star. That is, all this is the one without a second. And since then, I found that same sort of emphasis on the one, not only in the Christian tradition, the Jewish tradition, with the Shema, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our Lord is one, and also within the Muslim tradition of the first line from the Quran, there are no gods but God, the one. So, and it's that all this is Brahman, which is for me the truth as I've come to know it. And it doesn't change no matter what my mood is, even the best of times and the worst of times. When I come back to that, that's the truth that I know. And I can feel that in my core star. So anyhow, that's my little story. And I'd like to open it up to the group to share your experiences if you'd like, and to ask questions of me if you like. And, so please. Who would like to share now?
Hello, Thomas. I'll share. This is Sally.
Yes, Sally. Welcome.
Thank you. Truth is a very important facet of my life today. And it became very central for me at the end of my father's life because all kinds of lies and deceptions came out that related to his second wife. And it was like my whole reality was just blown away. My concept of people, of family, of trust, everything just shattered. And I was not prepared for how important those things were in my life and how literally I felt I was just shaken to my core. And it meant that I had to redefine truth in my life. What was the truth of my family, of my feelings towards family members, about many different values I had. And at that time, I actually sought out more spiritual guidance. And I came upon and embraced the ideas of Christian Science, where the truth is that, as you had said, there is only one God, and that God is all. And somehow I had to reframe my understanding of what had happened into this bigger perspective. And I was very, very grateful to have done the work that I've done on multi-perspective. And this kind of allowed me to back up and just feel my way into things and let go of long-held perspectives about different beliefs and different feelings about people. And I think at this point, I often feel humbled because I realize how often I don't feel like I know the truth of a situation, what is going on in the bigger picture of our political scene. You know, things of these natures, I'm much more circumspect than I used to be. And I also try and hold this vision of oneness and of a positive, loving force that is encompassing all. And to realize when I truly connect with that, how it can shift so many different things. And that, again, raises my questioning about, so what is reality? Can I just see this person in these kind of higher states and put to the side anything else, and if I want to call it a delusion or whatever, but it becomes my choice as to what I believe and what I choose to interact with. Now, do I have any certainty about what is truth? I can't say that I do, but there is a level where I feel a sense of truth and honesty in situations. And so again, it's like, can I truly trust that core feeling? Or is there a kind of filter that I'm putting into things? So I think to some degree I'm adding a perspective, but I can't say I'm giving an answer to your question. So thank you for bringing it up. It's a really wonderful topic to really reflect upon. So I appreciate you bringing it to the spirit gathering. I'm done.
Thank you, Sally. I know what you mean about humility and humbleness.
This is Diane. And
Hi, Diane.
Hi. What keeps coming to me is this remembrance of many years ago in the 80s, and I had spent a wonderful summer in Maine at a camp, and I was an adult. And I went on this canoe trip with some of the campers. They were all teenage girls and a few other counselors. And we were canoeing on this Pleasant Lake, it was called, in the middle of Maine. It was stunning. There were little, tiny little islands dotted here and there, and they were filled with blueberries. big fat blueberries, and the birds were enjoying them, and we would stop and get some ourselves. And it was just stunning. It was beautiful. It was spacious. It was open, and I loved the movement. And I happened to be in the lead canoe and was in the bow paddling. So I was sort of the first person kind of breaking the water and breaking the space, and yet being totally blended with it and really one with it. It was joy that was so joyous, which is, I don't know how else to express it. It was so freeing and so just so blended and so one, and so with delight and with just spaciousness and this connection. And there was this, it was just every stroke of the paddle was just more into it and more blended and more one with this truth. And what I'm reflecting on this evening, it's sort of like a chip off the old truth block for me in that moment, but in that understanding of something connected to something bigger, this big light of truth. And I was me, individuated, but yet at the same time so connected and so understanding of this big energy of light and love and truth. And it was just this connection that was incredible and just, pure joy. So that's what keeps coming to mind for me, and it just felt like I was in some truth of flow and of being from the big being and with the big being and with the all that is, and oneness again. So that's what comes for me, and that felt like some big truth thing of how it is and how it can be. Thank you. I'm complete.
Thank you, too. Interesting concept. Individuated connectedness.
This is Nancy, and what comes to me are times when I have wanted to discern the truth of a choice in life, and I might have been at a crossroads or just considering change. And in any case, what I found was a working definition of truth for myself in those times and circumstances was that I would have an inner spiritual experience, whether in meditation or through a dream, or prayer that would be a form of inner guidance. And if that was met sometime before or afterwards with an outer confirmation, which could come in the form of literally anything, like a book falling off a bookshelf that was about the topic I was pondering, or turning on the radio and hearing an announcer say something that just was exactly in harmony with my inner experience. Or, gosh, even once when I was discerning whether to pull back from a certain intense level of caregiving, and I had some inner guidance about that. I was driving, and I looked up, and the car in front of me had a bumper sticker that said, "Choose life." And while I knew what that meant in terms of a certain religious group, it held a certain meaning for me, and just was the exclamation point at the end of the sentence for my inner guidance. And so I came to trust that when inner and outer were in harmony about a decision or a new direction, I felt confident that it was the truth in that moment for myself. And that's what comes to me right now. And I'm complete. Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you, too.
This is Gwen. I was going to speak about growing up in a house where I felt there was omission of truth, and I think that's been a theme that I've needed to learn how to recognize through my life. And my answer, as far as I am right now, is to pay attention to inner resonance around whatever the question is. And if I can find, and I really liked what you just said about inner and outer harmony, that's kind of what it is. But I like to experience and pay attention to whether there is that kind of inner resonance or not. That's kind of been my guide. And then, from earlier remarks, I remember also that was back in the early 80s, I did a lot of intensive therapy in New York City, where I got a hotel room and I went every day and did a lot of work. And one of those days I was coming back from my sessions and walking down Broadway to my hotel. And all of a sudden I was given the gift of knowing unquestionably that all these other possibilities of other realities were really right here in front of me. I didn't see anything, but I felt it and I knew it. And I knew it in a way that it was so expansive and so large and feeling so joyful and wonderful that I'd never had an experience like that before. And that it's as though the atmosphere changed. And it continued to stay changed into my night, and I woke up in the morning with the residue still present. And so I would say that that's a different dimension of knowing. That was a very joyful and beautiful gift, and I've had a couple of those since then that have been very nourishing. So I think that's it for me. Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you, Gwen. We have about 10 minutes left, and two persons still might want to share. Laura or Amy, would you like to offer something?
It's Amy. Hi. I can, and I can also stand back. Laura, you have anything?
Hello, Laura. Are you there? Star 6.
It feels like she might be holding space.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd love. I'll jump in since she's not jumping in. First, I've really enjoyed all of this. It's so nice to hear everybody's voice, and I really thank you, Laura, for the beautiful invitation that you sent out and organizing this, and thank you, Thomas, for hosting and bringing the topic and the energy. And I've loved everybody's personal stories, the fat blueberries and the hotel room, and I mean, just all these wonderful things now I can remember as I think about each of you. It's just beautiful. And I was having a lot of images, and I've been thinking about, your question, Thomas, since you sent the invitation. And like Gwen, I think resonance is a good word for me about how do I know if it's true or truth. If I try to break it down into what that means, it's a kinesthetic sensation for me, and it's this sense of something dropping in, like landing. The dull thud of truth, that saying. It is really like a felt sense, and I can be aware in the moment of intellectual resistance or emotional reaction, but those things don't touch the power of that resonance of truth. And this truth can be an energetically or psychically derived factual thing. Like, oh, wow, this person has now left Earth. I feel it. They've passed into spirit. Yeah, that's true. There's this sense of dropping in my body, and it's like, yep, they're gone. Okay. And I might want to argue about it. No, they could still be okay. Or, oh, I don't want to think about that. So painful, emotional. Oh, I'm sad. But nope, they're gone. I can feel that because when I extend my awareness out to where they were, it's dissolved. There's nothing there. And that comes back to me as information, and it accords somehow with some inner compass, and then it drops in. It's like, yes, I accept that's truth. And I don't do a lot of that psychic retrieval of facts because I figure I'll find out what I need to know when I need to know it. But sometimes they come find me. And So that's part of it. And it hooks into this larger capital T truth that you're talking about because, you know, I feel I operate on a need-to-know basis. I'm easily overwhelmed by information, energy, emotion. And if something comes prancing into my field, I figure there's a reason for that, you know, and that it's part of that larger T truth that I'm meant to know, or it's calling for something, some compassionate response or a prayer or whatever. And so it's connected with that individuated connectedness. That it's a great phrase that was mentioned earlier by Diane and that you echoed, Thomas. So I feel like there is no capital T truth for me without resonance and individuated connectedness. And that when I experience capital T truth, it has to do with everything being in order and my sense of order and consciousness and organization, and that inner map that's not an intellectual map, that's a felt sense map for me, because that's how I perceive, is this fits, this is in order, this is right, this is true. And it's almost like it's not a static thing. When I was young, I had the privilege to be in a wilderness school, and I camped in the wilderness for most of the summer in various deep wildernesses and lived, you know, in a very earth-connected way. And one night while I was lying in my sleeping bag, I looked up at the sky and I felt the stars moving in my body. And that was a moment of capital T truth. Like I felt the motion of the earth and the motion of the stars, and I knew where I fit. I knew where I was. I knew I was part of everything. And it was so much bigger than anything I could hold intellectually or emotionally, but I didn't have to hold it intellectually or emotionally because it just was, and I was with it. And that's an example of a time of capital T truth. And when I get these confirmations of distant events that are a transition of someone out of the earth plane or anything that I am turning my awareness towards, it has that same quality of being in order. That's how I know it's true. It's the consciousness, the organization, the structure. It's resonant, it matches, it's consonant with this larger beingness. Another time I felt like it opened for me was a really powerful experience right after I learned the vibrational energy body centers. I was in the kitchen and my son was really little and he was having a temper tantrum and he was upset and he was screaming and he was pounding on my body, and it distracted me so much I forgot to put a pot holder on my hand when I put my hand in the oven to pull out the food for him, and I grabbed the oven rack with my bare hand and it seared my flesh. It gave me a really bad burn, and it was just like the opposite of order. It was chaos. It was disharmony. Everything was fragmented. I was overwhelmed. I wasn't really present in my body. And as I pulled my hand away, and it was just so painful, and my hand looked like a piece of meat that was on a barbecue. There were stripes where the oven rack, burned, seared into my flesh. I closed my eyes and I let all of it go. I let go of the baby who was, safe. He was standing up, holding onto my leg and pounding my butt and screaming. And, it was just pure pandemonium. I was in throbbing pain, and, everything was just wrong, out of order. And I closed my eyes, and I ran my vibrational energy body centers, and I went into this place of somewhere else that was just very connected, and I felt this relief of, oh yeah, this is sane, this is orderly, this is quiet, this is good, And I just went in there because I was just so overwhelmed, and when I opened my eyes and I looked at my hand, those stripes were gone. They were just gone, and my hand was normal flesh, and there was no burn, and my kid was whimpering and hanging onto my leg, and I just couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. It's like Sally says, your mind gets blown, when this kind of thing is shown to you. It's not what you were expecting. It's out of the realm of normal physics and what's possible. And that moment of capital T truth is in a lot of what fueled me all those years. I was a light body evangelist, is because I accessed it in that moment of pain and chaos and fracturedness. It brought wholeness, and everything dropped into place, and my kid calmed down, and I fed him, and went on about the day. So there have been a lot of times like that where I've been lucky enough to experience that capital T truth that triumphs over the little self's chaos. And I think that it's a felt sense for me. And if there are signs and miracles that come with it, that's great. But it's a known sense. I know it when I see it. I know it when I feel it. And it takes me out of myself as a little self and brings me into myself as a little self at the same time. Putting the stick down. Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you, too. Actually, it's now time to close the gathering. Sorry, Laura, if you wanted to speak, there isn't time to do that now. So, thank you for joining us for this Spirit Gathering teleconference. This call is archived as an MP3 at www.tzaddi.organization.org. And phone access to the recording of this call is available until next month's call. For playback of this recording, please dial 712-432-1085. And the access code is 990322 and then the pound sign. And we hope you'll join us for our next Spirit Gathering on Tuesday, February 20th. The topic and the host have yet to be decided upon, so volunteers are welcome. These calls are hosted by Tzaddi, an interspiritual metaphysical organization founded in California in 1964. Tzaddi welcomes, nurtures, and supports people in celebrating and more directly experiencing their relationship with the loving presence of the divine. Our programs are open to people of any race, color, gender preferences, and national or ethnic origin. So let's close now by offering some thanks. I'd like to thank Sally for holding space and Diane for recording the call. thanks also to Tzaddi founders Amy Keys and Dorothy Blackmere. And I thank all of you who've been part of our community tonight for sharing, for risking, and for speaking the truth as you know it. And thanks to the Divine, who supports us always, even when we are not aware of it. And so, may the Divine bless you and keep you. And the Divine make its face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. And may the Divine uplift its countenance within you and give you Sat Chidananda, divine truth, divine consciousness, divine being, and divine peace. So again, thank you very much for participating, and good night.